So I've been talking a lot with GitHub at various events. We just had our Axios AI Summit in December in San Francisco, and your boss and CEO, Thomas Tomke, Thomas was going to be here, so if you were expecting Thomas, unfortunately, you're going to have to save the umlaut for later. Mario's here. I'm sure there's a German word that means Mario's here, Thomas is not, but anyway. One of the reasons we've been talking so much about coding is that you can really see where generative AI is headed by looking at what it's done in the field of coding. How many people in here have written computer code in the last 5 years? That's great. That's more than in most rooms. Mario, I think you want to make that so that within how many years will everyone raise their hand?
So our dream is to make 1 billion developers out there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. That's more or less 10% of the world population by 2050. So maybe in less than 5 years, we could have everyone in this room raise their hands.
And we'll get there, but talk a little bit about kind of how you got there and sort of what's it been like, and I say this without hyperbole, what's it been like to have a front seat at the way that generative AI could change the future for all of us?
100%. So, hi everyone, Mario Rodriguez again, CPO at GitHub. I'm not German, but I'm Cuban, so you got a Cuban instead of a German overall. And instead of Legos, I salsa dance. Legos is my boss. He loves Legos over.
I was hoping to talk Legos.
Exactly. So,
Vishada.
So I came actually from Cuba to the United States. As you probably know, Cuba is a regime, so my father was a political prisoner, and we were able to kind of escape to America. Got to the United States when I was 14 years old and didn't speak any English. Going to high school in the United States when you don't speak English is a little bit tough, let me tell you that. But I just kind of kept at it. And I was lucky enough to be able to go to college, and then from college, I got into Microsoft. My first job at Microsoft was in Xbox playing games, and when you're 20-something years old, playing games for a living is a pretty good gig on it. And I worked on a lot of games that were kind of beginnings of AI even. So I worked on Halo 2 as an example, and Halo had a sophisticated system in it. I work on Fable, if you know that game as well, and then there's another game called Forza Motorsport 2 that was the beginning of a simulation game with AI on it. I transitioned from there into DevTools, and I transitioned from games into DevTools because, like, if you really think deep about it, like, humanity already invented the wheel, humanity already invented fire. Everything else we're gonna be doing from here on is gonna be powered by software. Everything you do, to a degree, is powered by software today. So I was thinking, well, might as well, spend my limited time on Earth giving developers the best tools that I can for them to actually accelerate human progress forward. And that's also what brought me into GitHub. So Microsoft acquired GitHub in 2018, and I started in there, worked in enterprise. And going back into AI, around 2020, we looked at a paper that was kind of exploring this model from OpenAI. And at that moment, we called it Codex. And we were trying to figure out if it was fiction or not. We were trying to see, okay, we talked about ML and MLOps a significant amount of time, but is this thing really gonna go and accelerate humanity forward or not? And when we play with it, we were, wow, like I remember the first day that I saw it, and the way that I saw it, by the way, was just trying to actually solve a set of programming questions and giving the answer. And I have seen demos like that a significant amount of times, but the thing that was captivating about this one is the understanding of natural language. Like, I had never seen anything that understood natural language as well at this model. And from there on, we had this technology. Like, we're like, okay, we have this. How do you get this into market? What can you do with it? How can you make it for the good of everyone instead of only for the good of a few?
And I'm curious, because you mentioned software is at the heart of, I think we've all benefited from the fact that software is everywhere, but we don't have to program. Like, that's been a good thing. I know a lot of people raise their hands that they're writing code, and thank you, but in general, as someone who's been writing about the technology revolution, most of our progress over the last 25 years has been more and more of that is handled by a few of y'all, most of y'all that raised your hands, and the rest of us don't have to program. We might like to. I enjoyed writing BASIC on the Apple II in the 1980s, but in general, I'm happy to let the computers do it. Why do we even want more of us writing code?
100%. I'll give you a personal example overall. My daughter, she's 9 years old. She wakes up one day and it's around 7:30 in the morning. It's like, Dad, I want to watch TV right now. And I'm like, it's 7:30 in the morning. You're not watching TV right now. So how can I entertain you? And what can we do something that is instructional? And she's like, blah, instructional. And I'm like, what about if you play a game? And she's like, okay. And I'm like, what about if it's a math game, as an example? And it's something that is engaging. Well, for me to create that math game, by the way, would take me a significant amount of time, or I would have to wait for someone to create an app out there that is for my 9-year-old and specifically about what she wants to be playing at 7:30 on a Saturday. While I was able to go, we have this product called GitHub Spark. I was able to go in it, program it with natural language, create it, and give it to her. She played until 8:30, and then after that, she went outside to play with some friends and never watched TV. So what I'm trying to say with that is, there's a lot of things that we all want that is personal to us, that is locked away on waiting for a professional developer to do something, or behind some ads on a free app, or behind something that is very hard for my mom to use, or everyone or anyone to use. So I think what the promise of 1 billion developers is actually saying, hey, where are the Mozarts out there right now? How can you enable them at this moment with software in a way that hasn't been done before?
And I can see a couple ways that it works, and help me understand which is more what you're thinking. Because one of the things that's incredible about generative AI is the ability, as you say, to kind of describe what you want and have it built. I don't necessarily think of that as coding if I only describe it in natural language and the AI engine creates code for me. Is that what you really mean when you say 1 billion developers? Or will I actually be doing some amount of coding and customization? And if so, where do the skills to do that? Because where I see it right now is for professional coders, GitHub Copilot, it's amazing. You can eliminate a lot of the drudgery. The 100%. AI engine does it, but you have to have the smarts to know, did it get something wrong? Look at it, say, no, that's not quite what I want. Where we're at today is, I might be able to describe it, but unless the AI engine does it perfectly, I'm not going to be able to fix it. So talk to me, what does it actually mean that if 1 billion people are coding? Are they just 1 billion people describing what they want and AI writing code, or are they actually going to be getting their hands dirty, engaging with the code the way I did when I was writing basic programs in the 80s?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So for me, look, I know how to cook, but I'm not opening a Michelin-starred restaurant anytime soon. I know how to bike, but you didn't see me in the Tour de France, you know? So I think right now, software developer, and your question makes the point even more, is locked behind these people that actually write code and understand code. And for me, software development means that through natural language, you could accomplish the same thing. So German should be an actual coding language, you know, like for like English, Spanish, anything out there that you could communicate. And that's innate to us, by the way. You don't have to teach someone how to end up communicating, like you have it in your DNA. That becomes the natural language, or that becomes the programming language of the world. And you have these agents, you know, coming back into these things that can go and do tasks for you and create a level of abstraction with multiple models that are fine-tuned towards that to create an application that you could use that is either ephemeral or is long-lived, that is customized to you. It's kind of like between mass market, you know, suits and tailor-made suits. How can we actually do that together and provide them that value to, you know, from a kid all the way to, you know, someone in the elderly years?
Well, I want to push you a little because you said that you can cook, but you're not a Michelin star chef. But if all you're doing is describing what you want, it seems more like you're the patron at the restaurant ordering off a menu than you are even the cook. Is that really all we're talking about, is a billion people saying, here's what I want? Or are you actually going to be involved further than that in the creation? And if so, how do we get the skills you might need to at least pick up a knife and be in the kitchen?
Yeah, 100%. The way that I think about that, it's like humanity overall has this thing called creativity that no machine has, nothing else has that. So what you're gonna be doing is not just ordering from a chef. The chef is then the person that is creative, that it translates those things into something. And I think by iteration with these models, you're gonna be able to exercise that creativity. So for me, humanity going forward is gonna be more and more abstracted, and the main value is gonna be what makes us human, which is the creativity of it. None of what exists today existed 500 million years ago, 500,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago. We created it from nothing. Like there was no blueprint for anything that what you see today. So humanity has that. So what about unlocking an artist that is in this room to actually further their creativity through the creation of software that aids them to that?
Do you need to have the logical skills that go into programming? And if so, do we need to teach more or less? What should we be teaching to prepare for the world you're describing? Is it the logic behind coding? Is it coding itself? Is it critical thinking?
Systems thinking continues to be one of those key things for sure that you're gonna have to understand. Humans are also pretty, I guess, both logical and illogical, but depending on how you wanna think about it. So logic and understandings of just like, hey, if I do this from a physics perspective, what happens? That continues to be. So I think math, physics, and those fields will continue to be incredibly powerful. Things in biology will continue to be very powerful as well. But I would say, yeah, system thinking and anything that actually gets more creativity out there will be a skill set. So instead of how can I type faster, think about how can I draw more, I think will become more of a skill set.
And in terms of how you get to that goal, I mean, today, there's GitHub, there's free versions now, but I don't imagine you get to 1 billion. If you made GitHub free, which in some ways you have.
We just did, yeah.
Copilot, rather, free. You still don't get to 1 billion. Is it going to just exist within sort of an AI assistant more broadly? I mean, that may be where Microsoft comes in handy, the fact that they own GitHub. Does those features have to be in just the basic Copilot in order to reach that kind of a goal?
Correct. Yeah, so one of the things that we're looking at right now is challenge ourselves to think through what must be true for 1 billion developers to happen, right? Like, how can we get there? You're talking about a consumer product at that moment, not only a developer product as we have it today. When you go to github.com, it's very developer first, but it's very developer first for today, not tomorrow, as you say. So there are 3 things. From a technology perspective, there needs to be a lot more that we need to do to kind of unify the world knowledge together with coding knowledge, I would say. Machines or these LLMs are really good at programming, but they need to get better at the abstraction layers of programming. They don't understand what architecture diagram is today. So how can you go in and create these agents that really are good at that and kind of continue to go from an abstraction layer up? So if you think about it, maybe a good analogy is a map. You could go on a map today and look at a block. Then from there, you could look at a city. From there, you could look at a country. From there, you could look, all the way to the world. You need to develop those abstraction layers, and that's what we are very focused on right now, is the technology behind where these agents can utilize information and interact with a human at the center to be able then to build the higher level of abstractions and then asynchronously create that for that human. So that's kind of number 1. And then number 2 is there's gonna have to be a lot of innovation in kind of the UX that the humans interact with these agents on. So what you see, clearly it has to be in your phone, because if it's not on the phone, let me tell you, like from an emerging country perspective, not everyone has a laptop. You're very lucky to have a laptop. So if it is not on a mobile device, you're not gonna reach people like in Africa as an example, in South America as an example, and many other development countries. So it has to be on your phone. It probably is gonna have to speak to you, which means voice is gonna have to be a factor factor of it. It has to be multimodal on the sense of I should be able to take a picture of something and say, recreate this for me or explain this to me, for me to get some knowledge and then to translate that knowledge into some creativity. It is going to have to kind of exercise what a human does today overall, which is, hey, quick reasoning. If I ask you a question and you know it, you're not going to think much. Your brain just takes over automatically. So we're going to have this cache system that just give you quick thinking, and we're going to have a reasoning layer that goes in and thinks for days or weeks at times to solve something. So all of that needs to happen in order for that 1B to come into fruition, in my opinion.
How multimodal is GitHub today? I mean, today I can't take a photo and bring it into Copilot Studio and say, hey, write a program that does this or whatever, right?
So you're right on the main product. We have this other product called Copilot Workspace, and in there you could actually go in and take a picture, give it to, and then it goes through a vision model and then understands that. We actually use a demo to be able to do a bug fix with that and say, hey, this is what is wrong with it, go and fix it. So we're already working a lot with not only Claude, but OpenAI and many other model providers in making that multimodal a reality overall. I don't see a world out there where multimodal does not become part of the everyday existence of AI.
And I said at the beginning that one of the reasons we're talking coding is not just, you're talking about it because you want 1 billion programmers. I'm talking about it because I think coding is ahead of where generative AI is going broadly. Talk about some lessons that we can learn from how AI has changed coding. What is the way that AI has so dramatically changed the field of coding already portend for the way generative is going to change work for the rest of us?
Correct. I'll start with the simple things, which is, it kind of gets the toil away. Part of the innovation of Copilot, and by the way, we were the first Copilot out there, so we're very proud of that. The innovation in Copilot at the very, very beginning was taking autocomplete to the next level, or IntelliSense to the next level. So what I gave you was just an ability to say, I want this, and then we'll give you a suggestion, and then just with tab, then you get that suggestion implemented. And as you could probably imagine, if I'm a professional developer and I'm typing all day, then every time I get a suggestion, if I hit a tab, that saves me time, which means I could get more done overall, and that's how you get to 55% productivity as an example. The other thing that we also noticed is, there was in this company where we gave them Copilot, this was at the very early beginnings, and we specifically said, okay, give it to your junior developers and to your senior developers, and then we took it away, and we were expecting that the junior developers were gonna be the ones that were, oh my God, I cannot program with this. And the feedback that we got actually was from the senior developers saying, please bring it back. I was before being pestered all the time by these junior people asking me all these questions, and they were getting now the answer from Copilot, and I was able to do what I wanted to do, and now I have to go back to Slack or Teams and be answering all of these things. So please bring it back so I could get my sanity. So I think another thing that is happening is it kind of levels the field a lot on information knowledge and information retrieval. You don't have to rely only on the senior people when you have a Copilot. You now can have a buddy next to you that, by the way, doesn't get upset if you ask it the same questions 5 times in a row. And it responds very nicely every single time, right? So you get these human connections that happen now at the places where it adds the most value instead of just in the learning stages. So we see that significantly. And then the third thing that it's doing, in my opinion, from a coding perspective, is enabling these levels of abstractions to happen that before were not there. So you're gonna have, for us as an example, I could go in and say, give me sentiment analysis of all of the feedback that these wonderful people are giving me on the software, and let me figure out what should I be reacting to first, and kind of utilize that to craft a better and better product overall. So that's mainly what we're seeing it right now as it's getting deployed. Productivity gains, actually information gets significantly better in a lot of these companies, and then you're seeing better software from those companies that are enabling their developers with it.
And one of the big questions when I ask people what do they think about AI, they're usually excited about something they can do and they're worried about something. And that worried about something is usually their job. Does coding tell us anything about whether AI is going to hurt jobs or create jobs from your perspective?
I mean,
we only have about 20.
Yeah, so what I would say is this, I visit a lot of customers, and when I visit customers, I ask them, how's your backlog doing, meaning the things that you want to do? It is this long. None of them tell me, oh, you know, my developers are not busy, and like, so I think what it's gonna enable overall is for us to accomplish more with the limited set of programmers that we have today. So if you ask me, is it gonna create more jobs? If we get to the 1 billion developers, the answer is hell yeah. In the short term, I think what it's enabling us to do is not have the shortage that we have today of innovation in the industry.
Well, Mario, we're going to have to leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Welcome to DLD.